This should be an interesting one to do. So, Fire Frontier is just a really weird island with a lot of quirks to it. First thing's the fact that the chord progression for most of it is not existent. It's a solid chord melody that lasts more than half the song's duration. Now, this isn't a bad thing per se, but it makes writing for it a lot harder than you'd think. Another quirk is the fact that it introduced a ton of never used instruments into MSM, and that can be quite the hard thing to manage. All of this combined to make it kind of awkward, but charming in its own way. Now, does this save it from being a bad song? Well, why don't we talk about it and see? The third from the worst on Fire Frontier is a toss-up between two monsters, but for now I'm going with Octopus. I'll say the other in dishonorable mentions. Octopus is shockingly not that great on this island, which isn't really normal for it. It plays in a really not that involved pattern that makes it just kind of fall flat, since it gets drowned out by everything else pretty easily. And like Cold Island Dandy Do before it, this monster has a sour note. The last note it plays is off-key and terrible, which is partly why everyone else plays that last note loudly, just so they can cover it up. All in all, Octopus is just kind of disappointing on the island, not really adding much to it and just fading away when the psychics came around. Second worst is once more ToeJammer, who is just insanely boring to listen to. Remember when I said ToeJammer on Cold Island only played like 5 notes? Well, how about we just downgrade that to 2? Yeah, only 2 notes to its name. Granted, it plays one of those notes twice, so it's actually technically 3 notes, but that's 3 whole notes. That has got to be the single lowest amount of notes for a vocal in MSM to have in a verse. Also, the fact that it plays throughout the entirety of the first verse and the first verse reprise means it's insanely repetitive, making those verses in general just really annoying. ToeJammer has really not aged well as a monster, to be honest. It seems every new island it gets added to just finds more and more ways to disappoint us. First monster is one that failed to capitalize on its potential. Ever since its first island, it has had the possibility of being amazing, but since that original island, it has never once been good. That monster is Rudy Toot. Rudy Toot is a tale of sad disappointment. It was happy and awesome on the continent, and everyone loved it. Then it went to Space Island, and Space Island is Space Island, so we won't talk about it. Then we heard it was coming to Fire Frontier, and it was like, holy crap, finally, another oh crap, it's garbage again. This could go for a ton of monsters in this particular verse, but it feels like Rudy Toot was just an afterthought. They realized they hadn't used it yet, so they just placed it here and covered it up with something better. When it comes down to the original soul that was in Rudy Toot, it's just gone. It's just completely disintegrated. Dishonorable mentions include the following monsters. Fangler is pretty much tied for 3rd place, but I went with Octopus because Fangler has pretty much always been disappointing, and Octopus is usually way better. All you need to know about Fangler is that playing fast and playing chords is not Fangler's strong suit, and if BBB knows what they're doing, they'll stop doing it. And Ruba's last note is too loud, and that's the only issue with it. There's probably others because this island sucks, but I don't know, I'm too lazy to remember. My brain can only focus on so many monsters at once, and there's like at least 15 on this island. All in all, Fire Frontier is a doomed island from the start, based on the composition alone. So that brings the question, is there anything redeemable about it? Well, surprisingly yes. There's a handful of monsters that make this whole thing worth listening to in the end. Third best is my favorite monster on the island, Popette. Honestly, you can really tell an island is bad when the percussion is in the top 3, but to be fair, Popette is really good anyway, so it's fine. It's such a simple sound design, but it works wonders in the verse it plays in, since there's a lack of bassy percussion in general. The basic 3-hit rhythm with a stray last hit to round things off is really satisfying, and I can't get enough of it. Another plus is how much personality is stuffed into this thing's design. With the crossed arm and slacked gaze, it really feels like it doesn't even care about the song at all. Or maybe it's just upset that it has to hard carry that verse on its shoulders, but you never know. Second best is a classic, a single element that has not fallen off, Potbelly. It can get a tad bit repetitive with its melody, but at the same time it's a catchy rhythm, so it kind of balances out in the end. The other big thing going for it in its favor is the fact that it's really the only melody in that verse anyway, with others just being support. So it really has a time to shine, and it capitalizes on this opportunity pretty well. There isn't really much to say about it, to be honest. It does its job, and it does its job well. The whole single chord verse being a catchy tune that doesn't break out of that chord, it just works. It's not the best Potbelly has ever been, but it's far from the worst. First place goes to another newcomer, one that shocked me on first glance because of how much better it was compared to everything else on the island. It truly lives up to being the island's quad. Yep, it's Gloptic. The good dulcimer sound font, the complex melody, the interest in the design, it all comes together to make a perfect monster. And I'm not talking about a perfect monster on Fire Frontier, I'm talking about a perfect monster compared to other islands as well. I wouldn't say rank it as high as Thwok or Giger, but it's really up there in terms of concept and execution. The only issue I have with this monster isn't even a problem with it, but rather an issue with the song as a whole, and that's that it's really quiet. I don't know why the dB on Fire Frontier was just turned down way too low, and the song's just so much quieter than every other one. This goes double for Gloptic since it's quiet on its own as it is, and paired with being in a quiet song, you got a monster that's harder to hear than a rabbit in a chainsaw factory. Honorable mentions include all the psychic newcomers, since they are really the only reason you'd ever want to visit this island. Without them, this would easily be a 0 out of 10 island with no redeeming qualities, and no elemental team besides this one would have fixed that. Fire Frontier sucks, not gonna sugarcoat it. But at the same time, it's really endearing, so it's conflicting. It's new, and chances are my opinions on it will change in the future, but for now there's a lot of problems. It's not the worst island we've done so far, but it's far from the best. The only redeeming quality it has are the psychic monsters because every single one of them is just really cool and creative. Next time, I want to see if we can get some Dawn of Fire love in here, so while I'm not banning MSM1 islands, you should try focusing on Dawn of Fire this time around, because the fire monsters are really interesting to talk about. That's all for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Alright, you know the drill by now. I'm gonna be completely honest, our group never really did a consensus on where it's placed on the tier list, but the general agreement was that it was like a 4.25 out of 10, so I'm going to place it right behind Plant Island. I feel like that's fair. Again, Psychic Monsters really, really hard carry this island. It's purely up there because of concept. Oh, and just another thing I noticed, this is actually later, I just recorded the Psychic Island segment, and now I have to make a separate recording because I realized it. Cold Island and Wublin Island are switching places because Wublin Island is not... Cold Island's worse than Wublin Island. It's, well, yeah, it's just how it is. That's pretty much it.